Over $589 billion was wiped out of Nvidia yesterday. And the reason? DeepSeek. DeepSeek launched a free open source large language model. That's a technological breakthrough that nobody can stop and everybody's talking about. Sound familiar? Today, we're going to explore why the markets crashed yesterday. Will the open source protocol or the $4 trillion global yen carry trade bursting be enough to stop Bitcoin? Let's find out. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. The market got absolutely wrecked yesterday as Nvidia wiped out $589 billion worth of market cap. That's $310 billion worth of the largest single-day market cap drop in history. Nvidia is 6.6% of the S&P 500 index, and its crash yesterday had a negative 30% impact on the price. And it all happened because of DeepSeek.
DeepSeek. This is a new, free, open-source AI model that beats the latest OpenAI and Meta models on key benchmarks, and it was made for a fraction of the cost. Now, it was trained by a Chinese research lab that used Nvidia H800s. That's a lower-performance version of the H100 chips that are cheaper, more available, and tailored for restricted markets like China. Now, I've been testing it out this morning, and on the surface, it looks and acts just like OpenAI's ChatGPT. And in fact, it actually thinks it is ChatGPT. When I asked, what model are you? It answered, I'm an AI language model created by OpenAI, specifically based on the GPT-4 architecture, suggesting that it was trained on ChatGPT outputs, which, leaving aside terms of service violations, it means that entirely new state-of-the-art models can be built on what is already out there. In other words, OpenAI's moat may be shrinking. If a model like DeepSeek can emerge with competitive performance, minimal cost, and reliance on existing outputs, it signals a rapidly shrinking barrier to entry in AI development, challenging the current dominance of industry leaders like OpenAI.
What happens when free open source software is released in novel and new ways that break traditional norms? They get adopted, and the price of existing products and platforms get repriced in the new novel breakthroughs. Will we see what happened to Cisco happen to Nvidia? It's totally possible. But do you know what technology that DeepSeek can't disrupt? Bitcoin. Bitcoin's main competition for the global store of value, US tech stocks, has now just become a little bit less competitive. And that's why, in the words of James Lavish, if you are selling your Bitcoin because of the DeepSeek news, you have no idea what you own. Bitcoin's price dipped below 100K briefly yesterday and has risen back to levels of about 103K as of this recording. As it turns out, people are starting to follow the advice of OGs like Max Kaiser, who say that Bitcoin price drops are just the market shaking out weak hands in favor of strong hands accumulating more sats. Or Tyler Winklevoss, who said Bitcoin's value is in its scarcity. Price drops just let you stack more for less. Unlike ChatGPT, Bitcoin's block space, scarcity, and moat with millions of users around the world can't just be copied in a few months with $6 million. Digital scarcity is an event that can only happen once. And the network effects coming from people investing into Bitcoin are becoming too large to overturn or ignore. ETFs continue buying up Bitcoin. We've got one of the largest oil producers in the world in Petrobras, which makes up 88% of Brazil's energy, mining Bitcoin with flared gas. We've got reporters at local news stations like in Youngstown, Ohio, talking about Bitcoin scarcity and 21 million Bitcoin being the cap.
Now, there will only be 21 million Bitcoin mined. There are 56 million millionaires around the world. If every one of them wanted to own a full Bitcoin, they couldn't.
We have states like Arizona who are voting to potentially adopt a strategic Bitcoin reserve as a state. And even Jim Cramer owns Bitcoin now.
I say if you want to own Bitcoin, own Bitcoin. I own Bitcoin. You should own Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a great thing to add.
Not gonna lie, when this video came out, I thought that Bitcoin was going back to 58K for sure. Bitcoiners shouldn't lose any sleep on DeepSeek, because even DeepSeek is bullish on Bitcoin. DeepSeek believes that Bitcoin will see a price between 180K and 220K around Q4 of next year. But let's get off DeepSeek for a little bit. What was happening in the markets is part of a much bigger and larger trade happening worldwide, the global yen carry trade. The Japanese yen carry trade involves borrowing money in the Japanese yen, a low interest currency, and investing that money in higher yielding assets. This has typically been the dollar and US stocks. This trade takes advantage of rate differentials in countries and jurisdictions around the world. But yesterday, the Bank of Japan raised rates to the highest levels that it's been in 17 years, and rates that we haven't seen since 2008, when they raised the interest rates from 0.25% to 0.5%. So what does this mean for the $4 trillion global yen carry trade? Well, this means that when the borrowing costs or the cost of the yen rises, that people will begin to sell off the other assets that they had in order to pay back their loans. This is likely the reason that we saw deep market sell-offs yesterday, not DeepSeek. And while the market was selling off, Bitcoiners were showing the world how to execute the new global carry trade, the Bitcoin carry trade. Yesterday, Metaplanet executed the largest equity offering in the history of Asia to buy more Bitcoin. Yesterday, they issued 21 million shares at a 0% discount with strike warrants at 100% in order to raise 116 billion yen to do, you guessed it, buy Bitcoin. This is the new global carry trade. And MicroStrategy wouldn't be outdone, as they came out with their new STRK or Strike offering, a new convertible preferred stock offering available for institutional investors. They're looking to sell 2.5 million shares of this new offering, which will pay out an 8% dividend in preferred stock. MicroStrategy can pay these dividends in cash or stock. This offers a 10-to-1 conversion into common stock, which MicroStrategy has the right to buy back in certain situations if the price of the stock drops to a certain level. And what this is effectively is an uncapped perpetual call option. This is the new global carry trade, borrowing in one currency or equity in order to invest in a higher yielding asset. Oh, and they also bought 10,107 Bitcoin for $1.1 billion, bringing their stack to 471,107 Bitcoin, which they've acquired for $30.4 billion with an average price of around $64,000 per Bitcoin. Speaking of borrowing against your Bitcoin, if you want to unlock liquidity in your Bitcoin without selling your Bitcoin, then I recommend that you go to the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans, and that's Ledn. They've been the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans since 2018 and have issued $6.5 billion worth of loans to tens of thousands of customers. I myself am a customer of Ledn, and I've primarily used Ledn to borrow against the Bitcoin that I've had in cold storage so that I don't have to borrow in higher credit card interest rate debt, which is in the high 20% range right now. An application takes just a few minutes in order to fill out, and you get money in your local currency in your account in less than 24 hours. Go to ledn.io/borrowing in order to start your loan today. That's ledn.io/borrowing. Another way that you can express your long-term conviction in Bitcoin is by removing your Bitcoin from exchanges and protecting your generational wealth the right way. I can't recommend enough the team at the Bitcoin Way, which will teach you the best practices in privacy, security, and responsibly holding your keys to your Bitcoin. Remove your Bitcoin from exchanges today, and do so with the guidance and help of an expert or a member on their team. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation at thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. That's thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. What's happening in DeepSeek is just deflation playing out against the backdrop of an inflationary world. Augustin Carstens is the representation of inflation and its need to get bigger and bigger in the modern credit-based system. Assets and currencies need to continually get inflated in order for the system to work. But instead of shrinking the inflation, or shrinking yourself, we think that the proper solution is to make bigger suits. He wants you to eat bugs, by the way. What we need is a better way to store economic energy, which Bitcoin has provided.
The entire history of the human race is littered with tragedy because people never had proper economic energy. A type 1 diabetic can't store organic energy. They will eat themselves to death. Fat is the way you store organic energy. Somehow, over the course of hundreds of millions of years, mammals figured out how to store organic energy, and they had fat cells. We as humans have not had the ability to store economic energy properly. We tried with gold, it never quite worked. I could give you 100 examples of it not quite working. I can give you 1,000 examples of hyperinflation dating back to 500 BC of money not quite working. For the first time in human history, we have invented a technology that allows a human to tightly bind economic energy to their person, or for a corporation to tightly bind economic energy to the corporation. What it means is you don't have to suffer an early, painful economic death. And you can tell me, oh, that doesn't matter, but I would point to everyone in Africa. I would point to all of the misery in Cuba and North Korea and Venezuela. I would point to the misery in the aftermath of hyperinflationary incidents that took place in Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Russia. I could go on, forever. There are literally 100,000 pages. Read The Story of Civilization by Will Durant, and you will find 1,000 examples of currency collapse and economic misery. And this person, Satoshi, offered us this gift. The gift is you get to own your own money, and no one can take it away from you. You get to keep it.
What's happening with DeepSeek is just what Jeff Booth explains in The Price of Tomorrow would happen. The price of goods and services, when measured against technology allowed to operate in free markets, goes down over time. The cost of storing your economic energy in fiat currencies is simply becoming too costly to ignore. The world is reaching a boiling point, and there is an exit strategy for anyone who's willing to listen to a podcast, have a curious mind, pick up a book, and read about the history and the eventual collapse of all fiat currencies. Nothing right now tells me that it's time to be bearish on Bitcoin, especially when you have a president of the United States talking about abolishing income taxes. Nothing tells me that the rate of debasement in the world is slowing down. And that's because at the end of the day, the money is broken, whichever way that you want to slice it. When you look back at the history of companies that were the leading companies in the stock market, all of them at some point in time either go away or fade away. But you know what has continued to persist over time, especially with broad and mass adoption, is protocols. Focus on the code, not the company. Focus on the protocol, not the platform. With unlimited money printing, we've unleashed a new era of AI and technological innovation that is far outpacing our ability to create and store value in the form of equities and companies. And that is why Bitcoin is valuable long term. If you want to continue to dive deeper in your journey into Bitcoin, then I suggest that you come down with me and hundreds of other people from across the world to Dallas, Texas from April 3rd through April 6th at the BitBlockBoom conference. You get to hear from some of your favorite speakers in Bitcoin like Parker Lewis, Marty Bent, Guy Swan, Bob Burnett, Gary Leland, and me. You'll get to learn how to buy your first Bitcoin, self-custody Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin at home, and exclusive workshops. And you'll also get opportunities to connect with your favorite Bitcoiners in real life. That's where the human network meets the digital network of Bitcoin. I encourage you to come, and I'm excited to meet you. Get $100 off your all-inclusive ticket by going to bitblockboom.com and entering the promo code BBB25. That's bitblockboom.com and entering the promo code BBB25. Don't focus on DeepSeek. Focus on the platform that can't be disrupted by DeepSeek. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.